Hello, hello. All right. I am still sick, but I'm slightly better, so we'll see how this goes. If I kind of start feeling not so great, I will end the stream. But got an idea here to do a stream where kind of one of these Percival Brainstorm ones, which I've tried in the past and it worked really good. Uh, and I was writing today and I kind of hit a dead end, and that's always very frustrating. And I'm like, did I hit a dead end, or at least I need to like do a full audit of like everything that I have in the story so far. So I'm going to kind of map it out, draw characters out, talk through a bunch of it just out loud. That's what's beneficial to me. I don't know if this is the best YouTube, really, but it kind of documents some of this like problem solving. So I'll try to describe even the problem. But I got some warm milk here. I'm actually getting low on vitamin C stuff. I've been chugging it all week and I'm almost out, so I got to restock. But and I have some coffee. Warm milk. I forgot that that is good, and I forgot that gives me flashbacks to childhood. Oh yes. Okay. So Percival, one of the issues is that I could talk. I think for like maybe too long, like 3 hours to like say everything. So I'm like, okay, what do I even say? Like in the Percival universe, like issue one, we've already done. So hold on, there we go. Uh, each each episode is 3 issues. Each issue is 30 pages. Wait, that's actually 30, 30, 30. So that's one. Yeah, sure. So I'm right now. Episode 2 is a 2 archer, and I'm almost done with one. This one is done, and that one was like a headache too. The Percival stories, there's a lot of world building, and it's almost like Game of Thrones ish, which means like yeah, like there's a lot of crap to try and keep track of, which I'm still figuring out. The coolest thing about it though is like a lot of the I want to keep the human stuff semi simple, and then there's another realm of the gods, the pantheon of the gods above, where they aren't exactly like real. You never see them, they never do anything, but they're kind of jockeying for power too, just based on like gold and who believes and who worships and stuff. And which kind of it's kind of based on ancient Mesopotamia, Assyrian style stuff. But then the other kind of part of the pitch is the Arthurian legend. It kind of existed before Christianity, but then it got reappropriated during Christianity in the Middle Ages, and that's when the Holy Grail got brought into it and some other stuff. But there were legends of like this Welsh king who united the land. That was all like pre-Christian. So my spin on it is to move the idea that the Grail actually existed pre-Christian as well, and it found its way to the table of Jesus for the Last Supper. So we're dealing with way, way, way pre-Christian storytelling, and Percival can actually still go seeking the Grail. The Grail was still like this important object, but they didn't. They knew it like had some important purpose, but they didn't exactly know what it was. And that's one of like the background plots of the on the God plot line is that kind of there's all these gods, and then there's some that are kind of mystery gods. One of the mystery gods is the god behind the Grail, who we will find out is like the Christian god, uh, which you could say that that's like the one god, which would then kind of what do you call it, contradict the idea that there's a pantheon. But that's kind of a Christian thing too, that it's almost like Old Testament to New Testament kind of moves from a pantheon to a one God thing. And the history of like Yahweh is actually like that. Like he started in a pantheon, then he becomes the one God. So it's weird that it contradicts, but it's like kind of okay. My spin that I've been thinking as I think about it is because when you I think about this kind of stuff so much that I'm like, you kind of start to believe it. I don't know, but so if there was such a thing as like a Christian who's like really into uh what is it? What's the word they use? Crap. Because I'm sick, my brain is a little bit slower, so this is really gonna be bad YouTube. But oh, wait, I got a cough. Pagan. So there's like Christian with plus pagan, which is even Christianity. That's kind of what it is. But then they just say that all the old stuff that would be like pagan, they just say it's demonic, but it still kind of exists. And they're like, yeah, it's just demons tricking you. And you could be like, well, what if there was like a spin where you're like, maybe it's not just demons, maybe like it is actually like then they'd be like, well, then it's not Christian. I'm like, okay, but what if you want to believe in the Christian God, but also kind of like the pagan stuff? That's where I'm at. But anyway, that's almost like where history is at. But that's what my story. And then the other twist on it is it's definitely of kind of the school of Robert E. Howard, where he went so far back in time that you can kind of do what you want without having to be too beholden to history. And I think what he did is go pre-flood, which is also what I'm doing. And I might change that, but I'm pretty thinking that might work pretty good for what I need to do. Because I'm wondering, like, yeah, would the Grail would then survive the flood, then come up after the flood, then make it to the Last Supper, and some other stuff like that would happen for like the legends of Arthur and stuff happening pre-flood. The thing that comes with that too is there's a lot of questions of technology, and I have it right now where there's explosive technology similar to nitroglycerin or dynamite, and some of this, but they don't have guns. So that's kind of where I'm like, dynamite, but not guns. Like, is that realistic? I hope so, because I don't want to. I want the explosives because it's a lot of fun, but I don't want guns because guns kind of changes the strategy and the storytelling and stuff. And even explosives. I mean, like, it is like they're such a powerful weapon. But I did see that early on with the TNT. I did some research and they were trying to figure out how to shoot and launch TNT super far accurately and explode accurately, and I think they never figured it out. They stick with gunpowder or whatever, and just launching like cannonballs. Was like the most destruction that you can do accurately. Where, because like TNT, it would actually just blow up the cannon for one thing, or like just the explosion to launch it, that would detonate it. So they can't even launch it. So like TNT has always been like a kind of more stationary thing, like realistically, even in like westerns and stuff. It's like this is not it doesn't actually go with guns that well. So then like maybe they have like some gun people, but it's kind of old crappy guns. But then it quickly gets to the question of like, okay, if you're in any kind of timeline of like technology with guns and they're like advancing, that becomes such a huge part of the culture and the story that I want to avoid that. Like, yeah, like if you're in the middle of like guns and someone comes along with like they figured out how to make a magazine reloader, like whatever, and someone else was using the stuffing the ball thing or whatever, like that, then the whole plot becomes about that and who can figure that out first, who can get that information out to the armies and arm the armies, and like that's all fun actually. And eventually, like I'll write these down. Like I want Percival to be like many, many, many stories, and it could get into a realm. I want one season, quote unquote, of Percival to be all about a war, and there could be a subplot in the war that's about a technology and the spread and stuff like that, how it changes. But I want to avoid that. So yeah, so I don't even know. Like I have it as it is now. Even the explosion thing, the explosives is like that. It's like a quick advantage to whoever has it. So I'm thinking about taking it out. It's some of these tough problems of like the story could kind of go either way. The problem is the first issue hinges on some explosions, and I do really like it. So I'm like, well, like, I think we'll just leave it. Anyway, Paulus, what's up? CJ, what's up? Shadowpunk, hey, what's up, guys? I'm a little sick still, but I'm doing a little thing. I've done this in the past, but I'm stuck on a script, so I'm going to talk out loud about it to the chat and see what can come up. So I'm going to kind of try and map out issue 2, which is a two. The second whole episode is a two-parter, but I'm going to just ignore the second part. If I can get this one done and have it be good, then I'm not too worried. Like I can find a way to make this one good as long as this one is good. But this one has to be good, and I hit a dead end today. So yeah. So overall world, there's devotion, which is the conquering city. Conquers down past the desert to tribute. And then further past tribute. Tribute is like a trade center. And then down here you have like jungle and tribes. And they like worship the four winds, etc. Like less gods, more nature. And then whenever you do that, there's always a plot of like, unite the tribes, and then it's a problem, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, that might be happening, but I think I can just have it be there and ignore it, because we're not focusing on that. So then Tribute, this all takes place on the outskirts of Tribute. Tribute and Devotion, they coexist. Tribute has been conquered by Devotion. Devotion is deliberately allowing for multi god worship in a divide and conquer kind of ploy. Like they aren't forcing their shit, kind of like what Rome did. And so there is like unrest within Tribute. I can sort of, I don't even know about mapping out Tribute, but yeah, like there's gates to Tribute is huge, like multiple cities. It's almost like a little country, but gates to the desert here. Here's like the main trade river. Here's the tower. Tower is important. Here's the gold field that was discovered. And this is like one day's travel. And even the characters, I can't remember all the characters' names, so I'm gonna have to like rename them as we go because I'm not gonna look them up. Yeah, it's weird how sick I am. I don't know. I keep feeling like any like hour, I'll feel better, but it's kind of been steady, just like a weird little steady, which is mildly alarming. I actually did buy some ivermectin today. You know, you can buy it online. I think it's kind of expensive. It's like $6 a pill or whatever, and they recommend like 30 pills. And I bought some, so it should be here at some point. Oh, warm milk. All right, can't even talk up to the point where I get to my problem. So what happens is a girl discovers a gold field, kind of like by pointing at a rock, kind of reveals a cave even, and in the cave is like a bunch of gold, maybe treasure, but that's kind of crazy. I think it's just gold. She finds gold, And then there's kind of this dispute over who gets the gold, because they asked her who showed her where the gold was, and she said it was a god who did it. And then they're like, well, whose god? Is it Tribute's god? Because they each have a different pantheon. And if it's Tribute's god that showed her the gold, Tribute wanted a higher claim to the gold. And then vice versa, if it's Devotion. And while she's getting interrogated, she ends up giving two answers: one Tribute god, one Devotion god, which totally complicates everything. And a lot of the issues is just that kind of craziness working its way out, of them trying to figure out, like, well, one thing is, so they end up kind of doing a test where they give her three knives, like I think it's called a blind test. Three knives. One has been blessed by a tribute priest. One's been blessed by a devotional priest to the god that she mentioned for that. Other one for the tribute. And one is like the control, like a unblessed knife. And she has to pick one, tie the ribbon to it, put it back in the box. They seal the box with a special wax. And then they're gonna transfer it to where the main priest is, and that's going to kind of settle the issue. But it doesn't get there. It gets intercepted by a terrorist organization, terrorists. Now this is where we're getting into stuff that I got to make sure I figure out, really. Because it's funny, I wrote some of it like willy-nilly or whatever. So I'm like, does it all fit? Shit, I don't even know. So the terrorists, they're not happy. You could call them like tribute radicals. So they don't like tribute either, because tribute is like, it's like you're with us or against us. And as for, this is what the people and what they suspect, kind of. And then there's going to be a plot that we find is that this terrorist cell was reappropriated by spies in Devotion. To do this mission. And there's like, they split, so like a lot of people don't like it. So eventually, like, a rat will come to the good guys, warn them that they aren't the ones who are responsible. It's like this shadowy sect operating out of Devotion under the auspices of this terrorist group. This is, as complicated as that sounds, it sort of, off the top of my head, it sort of still kind of works, because this is like how the CIA would use like biker gangs, or even how like the CIA will use like ISIS, or private armies in the Middle East or whatever. It's like they can kind of, but it would be a case where that went wrong. Now, here's one of the problems: is that is a big plot, kind of, and this all happens in the background. I don't have any actual characters shown or created until later. We'll see the one guy who might run, and I'm like, I probably should show some of that, because it's a big plot. It's like, you know what? This is kind of like almost the plot of like, what's the Peter Pan with Robin Williams one, where they're like, Rufio, Rufio. It's like, you got a gang, you got a new leader come in who kind of redirects the gang. The old leader doesn't like it. There's kind of a vote within the gang, blah, blah, blah. Crenshaw, what's up, man? So that kind of thing is all happening here in this like underground radical cell of the city that's occupied by Devotion. And then And that's one of the issues, is that there hasn't even been a scene. So some of it is sort of explained. This is the thing. A lot of these issues are these episodes. They're based mostly on Star Trek. Actually, I really want it to be like Star Trek style plots, and those are they'll have. I've been watching a few next gen for like research kind of, and they'll do stuff where they all the dialogue is explaining, it's all exposition kind of, it's just like elegant exposition, and that's kind of okay, like if that's what that has to be, and like that, so that's a little bit like parts of this story kind of have to be that way. But yeah, so we get some lines where people might be explaining this. It's a question of show versus tell, but then it's also a question of like efficiency and how many pages. Because if you're trying to do it in this style, I'm trying to kind of do it almost like a TV show. TV shows, one big difference between them and TV or movies is that they are super efficient. Movies can kind of do whatever they want, which is awesome. I love it. They can be cinematic. You know, like if you think movies are cinematic and TV shows kind of aren't, like that's one definition of cinema, is to be able to do whatever the hell you want. And TV shows kind of can't. They like their hands are tied. They have to be efficient. And that in its own way is kind of fun. But yeah, Prater 7, what's up, man? Okay, so we might get to the point where I hit my like dead end. But so talking some of this out just helps a little bit even. So we got the terrorists. So what happens with the plot is there's a box that will settle the squabble of who gets more claim on the gold field, if it's the devotion forces or the tribute forces. And well, actually, even that is this is a little bit. I want to change that slightly, because I what I have it is it's the it does get like sort of complicated, but there's a old mine that is like almost run down, so all the old miners want to move to the new mine to mine it. But then it was the farmers who discovered the mine, so it's kind of like farmers versus miners. That's how it is now. And I think it would be kind of cool if they're both, like the miners have allied with devotion to get the claim, the possible claim. But they're both like not exactly devotion. My farmers aren't either. But anyway, the box gets never makes never makes it to the destination. They find some dead bodies, the dead body of the guy who was transporting it, and the dead body of two known terrorists in the anti-devotional cell. And I'm wondering what should call them. I got to think about that too, because it could be like the storm dawn, whatever, like something with storm in it, whatever, like something that sounds like terrorists or whatever, you know, I don't know. But so the box, I can kind of imagine that it's just confusing and crazy. This what's funny is like this episode is actually kind of hard to pitch because the pitch is too complicated, so that could be a problem too. I don't even know. But I don't want to abandon it. I really, I actually honestly like the concept. It reminds me of a Star Trek plot, is why I like it. But then I'm like, how do Star Trek? They do stuff and it's like oddly pretty simple, a lot of it. But okay, so the box doesn't make it. So they're kind of like investigating the murders. They're trying to reach out to contacts that might know the gang, and nothing much is happening. But then they do get a bite. They get a message from the gang saying, "We'll trade the box for the girl." And then that creates like a whole new issue that needs renegotiating for if they even want the box back at this point, because now that it's been stolen, it could have been tampered with. And the girl has a lot of value too because she's the one who found the gold field. So traditionally, they had both wanted the gold field more than the girl. But now that the terrorists want the girl, it makes them reevaluate that. But they won't even have her, if they trade, because they were going to do it as a split, like 60% of the gold, and you get like minority of the gold and you get control of the girl, was one of the outcomes, which was at first deemed the less positive outcome. Now that switches to almost being like the more positive. And in that renegotiation, they actually end up deciding to go all or nothing, which means you get all the gold and the girl's gone. And this is to get, assuming that they do trade the girl, get the box back, and assuming like that there isn't any like clandestine things. But I think that's like the leadership's plan is that, and Percival doesn't like it. He doesn't like that they're just trading the girl off, or willing to trade the girl. So that's where I'm up to now. That part I kind of like that they, instead of abandoning the trade, they actually doubled down. It sort of makes sense with the way things are valued and everything, and the characters and stuff. Or not even sort of. I feel like in context it does make sense that they would do that. So that's all seemingly working. But then it's kind of okay. What then? So then they have their contact. His name at this point is Newt, and they're going to send him back to talk to whoever he talked to in the first place, which presumably is the terrorist cell that wanted to trade in the first place. He's going to give them a location. They're going to meet, make the trade. So there's still a lot like that would presumably happen. That could be the rest of the issue. I know how I want it to end is I actually want Percival to like kind of be about to trade the girl, and he kind of puts a kibosh on the project himself and takes the girl north, partly because she tells him she knows where the Grail is, but which I mean is a little bit selfish, but he just doesn't want to go with the trade just for the girl, and he ends up making a lot of enemies when he does that, and that's the end of the issue. So it gets kind of up to the point where they would meet to make the deal. But then I was going to have all this stuff happen. Like, let me get some extra space. Yeah. Okay. So one possibility is Newt is going to go. They want to follow Newt because they want to know who's there, who the terrorist cell is, and Newt would kind of allow them. He has no choice really, so he would have two options. He knows like he can't just go to the secret base or whatever if they're with him, because then they would know. He could ask them to blindfold themselves. And I think they might agree. Okay, we're getting somewhere already. The other thing I was thinking is like he could know, like if that's the case, he could go somewhere to a bar. There would be a contact there who would see him and be like, "Oh, okay, he's got someone with him. They can't see the fort, so we'll meet somewhere else, like a fake fort." And then they give him that information. Then they meet there. But that, like, you can do that too. But that is not as cool as just like asking him if they agree to be blindfolded and then them saying yes. So he will take them, and they will meet someone who is basically almost like one of the main bad guys. This spy from Devotion. Then meanwhile, Percival and the captain I have them traveling. This is part of the issue is they're sort of waiting here because do they just wait and guard the girl until they hear where the meeting for the exchange is, then they take the girl? But no, meanwhile they have like some royalty with them, so I think they're escorting the royalty back. And then here's some possibilities. So one thing is this is where the actual what would you call it? The whistleblower from the terrorists. He claims asylum basically. This is one possibility. Another possibility is the terrorists would actually like attempt an assassination on the royalty, and then Percival and the captain would catch them, interrogate them, and then they claim they had nothing to do with the box plan. And then that is kind of a red flag for their friends who are in the middle of that plan. And then they are already in deep shit. They might actually get killed, even though they're kind of main characters. But it'll possibly get a little Game of Thronesy here where, like, if people get written into corners and I can't get them out, like, right now Percival doesn't have the Grail, so he can't save people. But I picture it as like Hercules: The Legendary Journey, so I don't necessarily want it to be too dark. John Snowden, what's up? I'm feeling actually like, well, yeah, a little bit better, but still sick, which is really a bummer. But I can kind of do. I think by tomorrow I'll actually be like almost fully functional. The thing I noticed though, because I remember this happened last time, is like if your body is kind of shutting down, it does feel like, the beginning of death or whatever. And so one thing is like you don't run, like because I'm like, oh, I kind of want to like work out, but I'm like, I'm not gonna work out when my body's half shut down like this. Even though I could, I'm just not gonna, like, it doesn't feel right. So I won't be able to do like exercise until my body gets back to normal, which I think by Monday I might be 100%. Who knows, knock on wood, I guess, but and I'm hoping by tomorrow I'll just be like actually like straight up feeling okay. Yes. So of the two options, if there's an assassination attempt, it doesn't exactly make sense. So I'm thinking of them. Their prototype is sort of like Northern Ireland a little bit, but it doesn't make sense that if they get kind of infiltrated and have turmoil in their own terrorist cell, that they would at the same time split off and do a super important assassination mission. It kind of makes more sense that the turmoil would be just on those terms. So then the turmoil is, do we change our identity and do what this spy wants us to do? Kind of become a puppet organization for devotion, or do we like go for help and kind of warn some people of what they're up to? That rings a little more true. I'm trying to think as I say it, because I could say it the other way. So, do we become a puppet organization, or do we make this assassination attempt? But then it's like, if you're planning the assassination attempt, maybe if it was like a suicide thing, but that gets kind of weird too. And so this is part of the issue I'm in too, is like, so Percival and the captain, they're just escorting these like carriages through the city. And it's like, what could happen from there that feels, so maybe that needs to be adjusted, but that feels like something could happen that's fun. Like, one thing I was thinking is like, well, one of the carriages could like explode, and that's kind of cool, but it's like so out of the blue that it's a little bit too ridiculous. And then it's like, oh, they look around, maybe they see someone on the roof, then they give chase, and they catch him, they interrogate him. Then you get back to your plot. But even if this is like, even if I work through to that point of the plot, it does get weird about what happens. Because at one point I'm just like, why are they continuing this trade? The trade would break down, for the box. It would break down extremely quickly. The second that they know that it's not legit. But I think one thing that happens is they plan to continue it, but fake in a fake way, just to like meet up and then kind of have a battle to try and capture people. And that's sort of the other team is thinking that too or whatever. So some of that is like still kind of working. But so of these two, yeah, even this is the problem. Even a guy running up, this is kind of where at the point where I was telling you where I hit my sort of dead end is, even if a guy runs up and wants asylum, like a witness, he wants to tell him about the terrorist cell. And then like you could have like a big guy with an axe chasing him, like a Goliath kind of guy who's one of the bad guys, and he's like, hand him over to me, and they're like, no, and he's like, hand him over or I'll kill you, and they're like, no, and then they have to fight him. I mean, okay, that is not bad, but it's a little bit weird. I gotta think that could almost work. So that's one thing. That was one of the sort of ideas I had. The another idea is that it just happens off screen. So the captain kind of runs this like police department-ish type thing. And they just come, a messenger comes, says, hey, we had a guy turn himself in. You need to hear what he has to say. See, that's like boring though. What if, is there a way to combine both? Yeah. So it could be, he says a guy turned himself in and all hell's breaking loose. You guys need to get to the HQ or whatever, the barracks. So they get there, and then it's under siege essentially by gangsters, and there's a lot of soldiers there too, so there's no actual violence. That's one of those sort of, not exactly a theme, but a thing in Percival is like, if the forces are 50-50, they aren't going to fight a lot of times. And so like it's a lot of tension, but no actual violence. It's percolating, like violence might happen. But it would happen in situations where, more like a raid or whatever, more than 50-50 or one-on-one kind of thing. Delay. Pear, how you feeling? Feeling about the same. Slightly better, which is good. Slightly better, but bummed that it's about the same. Have you watched the Mechanic movies? Assassinations appeared to be accidents. That's cool. Yeah, so it could be, yeah, like this, but then, yeah, like, so this is, if you're thinking of this plot that I haven't, like, shown, but it's the turmoil in the terrorist cell. You have one guy eventually runs, he's like a rat, but he's like a witness kind of guy. He's gonna warn him. Then the deal becomes a game of chicken at the end, the trade, which I don't mind. So I think that's what happens. But then just how it happens, I want to get it where it feels okay. Like, it's not like they just turn a corner, their little convoy, and then there he is, and he asks for asylum, and then there's that guy. Like, I don't want it to be convenient. It makes sense that he's trying to find them, so he would go to the barracks. So that's what should happen. So it's a messenger comes and warns them. We'll proceed with this and see how this works. The messenger warns them, so they do make it to the barracks, There is turmoil at the barracks, but it's like under control. They go inside. Uh, the guy warns them, like, it wasn't. Um, it wasn't the gang, terrorist gang that did it. It's this other thing. And then so then they would want to call off, but then we would cut to our friends who are in the middle of like passing along the deal. Yeah, and they're like kind of screwed. Okay. I mean this at least this at least solves my problem initially. There's going to be more problems. I borderline wrote myself into a corner on this script. It's pretty convoluted. But I wonder if, like, I don't know if that's okay. I will be able to simplify it if I have to too. So I just want to get through it if I can. And kind of the rule is like what would happen. Like I don't want it to be the convenience of what I need to happen, just what would actually happen. So yeah, like in this case, like if your terrorist cell is getting reappropriated to be a puppet and you don't like it and you want to go inform to the police, you go to the police station. Like that's what you do. And they would try and stop you, so like he had his whole little adventure. Like they tried to kill him, and that might have been what finally they failed to kill him. So then he did sneak off to the police station. So all this stuff happened in the background. That's where I'm like, I should almost make that a scene and make him a character. Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, since I'm a little sick, like it's not necessarily worth staying on the live stream super long, everyone. But I feel like I'm curious to rewatch this because I feel like it must be like sounds super crazy and make no sense. But I think it'll be cool. I kind of, in one respect too, like the pretty dang convoluted plots, those can be fun once in a while. But I guess they still gotta like kind of make sense, I guess. But let's see. I think I'm kind of doing that. I don't know. But yeah, there's some kind of fun stuff that comes up from it. Um, although even in this one, there isn't that much action. That's where I'm like, like meeting a guy in the street with a big axe who's trying to kill, like that would be meeting him during the assassination attempt and it just happens to be nearby. Like that's convenient, so I don't want to do it. But that would be kind of fun action. But to me, it's just not worth it. But he could still be outside, lurking outside the police station, you know. And maybe they do have to try to move the witness, and he doesn't. Maybe he does get like killed or something, you know. So, yeah. Um, yeah. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna get on out of here. Everyone, thank you for hanging out for a second. John Snowden sounds interesting. I actually thought Percival was an Arthurian legend story. Gonna jump off and eat enchiladas. Peace. Cool. Yeah. See you, man. Yeah. It is. It is Arthurian legend. It's he goes for the Grail. That's kind of like what this all is. But yes. Okay. So I'll see everyone later. Bye bye.